Tonight we're joined by Leslie Hughes, a social media strategist and corporate trainer who specializes in LinkedIn. She is principal at Punch Media, where she works with clients to create and optimize a strong social media presence. Leslie was an early adopter of digital marketing, and her passion and excitement for connecting others, whether they're clients, customers, or anyone in between, is evident when she speaks. I saw Leslie speak at the EAC conference in June, and her passion was definitely evident. I'm pleased to welcome her tonight and to share her advice and insight with all of us.
Thank you so much. Well, just as I mentioned at the conference, that was when was that? It was in June. I'm wildly intimidated by editors. I worked in. I think you all have superpowers. So I perhaps may stumble upon a few words, and please don't judge if my grammar is inappropriate or wrong, because as I say, I am going to be a little bit self-conscious in front of you because I think you all are amazing in your craft and what you do. I worked at Wedding Bells and Fashion Magazine, and at St. Joseph, so I have a lot of experience with wonderful editors, and I would do the I'm not worthy sort of every time they would come by and they think I'm a little nuts, but. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm really delighted to be here to present to all of you. And as you mentioned, I am really, really excited to present about LinkedIn to you because it's a really great and powerful presence. I have to sort of forewarn that I talk very quickly, and so there is going to be quite a bit of time that we're going to have questions and answers, and if there's any need to sort of stop me to sort of clarify anything, please do so. I speak at a college, and I'm used to sort of having a lot of energy to keep them awake. Anyway, so I'm going to get sort of move forward a little bit here. So just a little bit background on me. This is sort of my humble brag. I got to meet Arianna Huffington last week, so I was really, really excited to do that. She's down in the bottom right-hand corner. You can see I'm gleeful in these pictures. I'm a real social media dork and marketing dork. So this is Gary Vaynerchuk up on the top right-hand side, and Seth Godin, who I've met big celebrities before, like really like household names before. And then when I met Seth Godin, my hands were shaking. I was really nervous and sort of happy there that I was at the LinkedIn head office to be there as well. So those are a little my humble brags to begin with. So I have been an early adopter in the world of social. I think I started in about 1996 sort of doing digital strategy back then, which seemed odd because it was Web 1.0 and it was developing websites and things like that. And I really found I was really passionate about the web. I just love the non-linear aspect of what the web was all about and the potential of it. And so it sort of has, as I moved away from just sort of doing web stuff, when I started working at Wedding Bells, I was actually working in the web department in 1998 or so, and then moved on to a .com. I got laid off because the .com thing went .bomb, and I didn't have a job because all these angel investors sort of lost all their money. And so I went back to traditional advertising and worked at a marketing agency and did those buck slip inserts that, those ones you throw out. They're the ones that they spend a lot of money on those things. There's a lot of money that goes into them. And so I did that for a few years and then kept bumping into my future boss at Wedding Bells. I kept bumping into her in the gym and saying, "How's Wedding Bells? I love Wedding." It was a really great environment to work. I loved St. Joseph. And so she said, "Would you want to come back and work in sales?" And I was like, just blissfully happy to go back and work in sales. And then I had my son and wanted to stay at home. Some people in the blogging industry are staying at home with their kids, and so I thought, well, how can I stay at home and do this? And so I started learning everything there was to know about social media. So I now teach at Durham College. I teach at the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, and I work with clients such as the Children's Wish Foundation. I work with clients even in the States. Some of the deliverables that I have with them, I work with Guardian Life Insurance Company of America to actually write and create. I'm not a writer as proficient as you guys are, but I do know LinkedIn. So I optimize their profiles on LinkedIn as well. So this is just some of my background, so you don't think I'm a hack and I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. So today I'm going to probably be drinking from the fire hose. I have a lot of information that I want to bestow upon you. Unfortunately, I can't cover everything there is to know about LinkedIn, but I'm going to focus on the key elements that I really hope that you're going to take away today so that you can really take action and really feel confident about your LinkedIn profile and why LinkedIn is a really, really strong channel for you as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit, we all pretty much know how social media is changing marketing, but I'm going to just go over a little bit of that. Because frankly, I see a lot of people are still using social media inappropriately. improperly. And so I see a lot of businesses that are still sort of using it wrong. And so I'm going to talk again about what is LinkedIn, how it benefits you, how to make a great first impression. So I'm going to focus really on the 3 key elements that I hope that you'll take away from this and be able to actually take action and with your profile. And then I'm going to do a little bit of social selling, because that's the latest buzzword term on how to convert business and things like that. So we'll get into that as well. So as I mentioned, social media really has changed everything, because the fundamental thing, the aha moment of social media, is that it is a two-way engagement. And so my frustration that I see with businesses is they still think that they can repurpose sort of traditional one-way push out into the masses and think that interruption-based advertising or interruption-based marketing is still going to work, but it has its place. There certainly is part of that, but that social media really is about two-way engagement. And so this is the piece that seems to be missing with few businesses, is that they seem to not understand that this disruption is happening, and it is about relationships at the end of the day, which makes me really passionate, because I really believe in the whole power of being behind the computer. Even though we're behind the computer, we're actually connecting human to human. And so the fundamentals that sort of happen and the I guess the etiquette that happens face to face are the same pieces of etiquette that we should be using behind the computer. And I think some people sort of lose sight of that. They sort of forget that. So it has changed everything, because it is collaboration and it's connection and it's relationship. And for me, it's also about the right content, which is what you guys are all about, but it's the right content in the right context, which is really, really, really important as well, because one channel is different than the next channel. Twitter is really different than LinkedIn, and Facebook is really different than YouTube. So these are all different channels, and we can't just simply take one message and just distribute to all of them. We have to think about the audience and all those things. So that's just sort of my strategy talk, my overarching little pitch. And what's also important is that we all are our own brands. This is really exciting, because we all are our own media agencies, and we have the power to disseminate information. In the past, the traditional agencies would hold all of the power into the dissemination of information, but now we can act as our own media agencies, where we can be the editor. I mean, some of us are better editors than others, me not one of them. But we are our own brand, and so it's really important that even if you work for an organization or you're self-employed, that you are a brand over and above the actual business brand as well. So some of those things sort of have to be tempered together, and when I work with bigger organizations, I try to work with making sure that their LinkedIn profile, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but their LinkedIn summary is married with the person's actual personal brand, their business brand, and also the actual business itself. So the business should have a little boilerplate in there as well. And so that's a little an aside, but it really is important to recognize that we are all brands at the end of the day. So why LinkedIn is really essential is because of the wide reach. Now there's over 331 million members in over 200 countries. And so this is where the business networking, so it's the Chamber of Commerce or the Board of Trade of social media. And so this is why it's important, is because we're not publishing what we had for breakfast, or if we had a muffin, or if we ran 10K. This is where we're putting on our virtual business suits and we are having business connections with each other. And so this is where people are decision makers and higher profile people with money are investing time. This isn't where we're going to sort of play around. We sort of play in the Facebook. A lot of people on Facebook? Not as many as I expected. Okay. Are most of you on LinkedIn in some shape or form? That I'm happy about. I'm a little bit more of a champion on LinkedIn than any of the other channels. And so we are investing time on here. So this is a really important channel, and it's also because, as I mentioned, you as a personal brand, when someone goes to Google who you are and they want to get to know who you are, LinkedIn is actually one of the highest ranked sites. So I challenge you to go home and actually do that. Google your name and see which sites come up, because that's what people are going to be doing. I think the statistic is now as high as anywhere between 70 and 80%. Before someone decides to do business with you, they Google who you are. Or we Google before we even make any kind of decision with any kind of purchase that we make. And so it's really important for us to craft our brand very, very well. And because of that, LinkedIn is actually one of the most trustworthy of all the channels as well, because we're not sort of sharing miscellaneous information. There's not a whole lot of viral, crazy posts about celebrity deaths on these kind of channels, on LinkedIn specifically, that most people are more likely to trust the content that comes from LinkedIn as well. So as I boil LinkedIn down, I like to think of it as your business card it's your resume and your Rolodex. Most people think of LinkedIn as just your resume, but because it actually is your Rolodex as well, it's a really, really important channel, and we'll go through that. And how that specifically works is it's based on 6 degrees of separation. Most of us know what that is. There's a theory that it takes there's about 6 people in the world of connections to meet the Queen of England or to meet someone that's like a surfer in Australia. There's only 6 people that are the disconnect between, is that the right word? That connect you. See, I'm so nervous in front of you guys.
We're so glad.
Between you and the rest of the world, there's only 6 degrees of separation. And some people actually thought it was the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, because there was a game about that a few years ago that supposedly Kevin Bacon has worked with everybody in Hollywood, so people would play this game of how many degrees away are you from Kevin Bacon. And so LinkedIn actually uses a model of 3 degrees of separation. So in this example, I was kind of looking for celebrities, and so I came up with Deepak Chopra, and so I sort of Googled Deepak Chopra not Googled, but I looked with it in the search engine for LinkedIn, and I noticed that I have 3 different connections that actually could introduce me to Deepak Chopra, which is really interesting, Dr. Deepak Chopra, because as I say, this is the 3 degrees of separation, so they can help me turn a cold call into a warm introduction. So I'll talk about that in a bit, but this really shows you how the power of that Rolodex and how building up your Rolodex on LinkedIn, why this is so important and so powerful. So as I boil things down, this is sort of my 3 steps to success, because I know that, frankly, I was sort of saying to Lisa when I came in that I find social media overwhelming, and I do this all day, every day. So if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing in social media, you're not alone. We're still in the really early stages of social media, and frankly, a lot of really savvy social media people really don't know what the heck they're doing either, and we're sort of playing around in this paddling pool together, sort of just trying to figure it out as we go. I've been an early adopter in social media, and I remember joining up only about 8 years ago. So when we think about how the widespread adoption of social, it's only been about 8 years for it to sort of take off. So I just sort of want to reassure you about just feeling, if you feel overwhelmed at all, it's okay. Yes?
Sorry, we're missing about a third of the slide.
Okay.
There we go.
There. Okay, perfect. Okay, so my 3 steps for LinkedIn success is to create a really strong first impression. This is really important. This is what I'm empowering you to walk home with today, is to make sure that you have the 3 key elements, at least 3 key elements, that you're going to be able to walk away with and to really create a strong presence. The second I've already alluded to, which is connect with quality people. I believe we don't exchange business cards without a conversation. So for me, I always vet every single person that comes into my network, because I believe in quality over quantity. And then the last step really boils down to, as I mentioned, what social media is all about, which is having conversations and deepening relationships. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Now, I've heard different statistics to say that it takes anywhere up to 9 seconds to make a first impression. I've heard even less than that. And I've also heard that a goldfish's attention span is only 9 seconds, which is a little frightening. So it only takes a few moments to make a first impression. And so the 3 key areas for you to focus on, I'm going to give you some actionable sort of take-home formulas for your headline. But I'm going to have a little fun with the photo area. So it's really important that you have a strong professional photo. And again, I'm going to show you some don'ts in that category, because it's a lot of fun sort of playing around with those. I'm going to talk a little bit about your headline. So your headline is a first impression, so you can see right up in this area here, that's sort of the headline. And then your summary is 2,000 characters to basically tell your brand story. But before you begin, I encourage people to turn off your activity broadcasts, because once you start making these changes to your LinkedIn account, everyone is going to congratulate you on your current job that you've had for 20 years. And so it's ideal to go up into, basically you go up into the right-hand corner, you click on where your image is, where your picture is, scroll down and it'll say privacy, and then you just simply go into the privacy controls and just turn off your activity broadcast, and that will prevent everyone from seeing all these updates that you're going to be making to your account. So these are some of the do not images. So while I would love to be hanging 10, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing, he's also responsible for national security programs. And those two things kind of don't really go together. I kind of wouldn't sort of expect somebody to be doing a very adventurous, this isn't, those brands don't kind of go together. So I strongly recommend someone change from having a swimsuit and hanging 10. And this was literally someone that was in my second degree connection. So unless you really look a lot like George Clooney, don't be putting pictures of George Clooney up as your profile. This person is actually a forensic accountant or a certified business evaluator, somebody who has to businesses have to open up their books, and this person has to be very trustworthy and competent in their job. And so to me, he looks a little bit like a Yahoo if he's got a picture of George Clooney up there. This is another one that came up, which kind of just, I think it's pretty self-explanatory as to why you wouldn't want to have, I don't know if that person looks even scary in real life as opposed to just the sketch that he's got, but he's a little scarier. This is another one that I think a shirt would be nice in the profile. For my college students, it's like, don't go to a kegger and be drinking and put those kinds of pictures up. So it is important to have a professional profile, because this is not what you want someone to sort of see when they come across your lovely face, because LinkedIn profiles with an image actually you have 11 times, you're 11 times more likely to gain opportunities as a result of having an image. I find it pretty challenging to accept someone into my Rolodex if someone hasn't taken the time to put their picture. So, yes, please.
You are not photogenic and you're worried the picture might actually scare people away, even if it's professional looking.
I think everyone's possibly photogenic. I mean, are you speaking about yourself or somebody else? Because I'm sure that you're lovely in photos if you're talking about yourself or the other person, because people, well, my picture actually, I don't think it actually even looks like myself, and there's other pictures that I think I look a little like a drag queen in them, but I still put them up because people are more likely to do business with someone because they know, like, and trust them, and so people will feel like that they can trust someone right away when they see their face, and so I believe it to be important. You look like I'm challenging you a little bit on this. You're like, I don't know if I'm convinced on that. Yes, ma'am.
What if you had an image that wasn't of your face, but you thought represented your business?
I think still it's the face-to-face, because oftentimes, my name is very common, and so there's a bunch of other Leslie Hughes, so when someone's looking for me, they wouldn't necessarily know it was me unless they saw my face. So that to me is why I've seen other avatars, I've seen other things, and it just doesn't, it's not as professional as having a professional photo taken, and they don't necessarily have to be paid professional like something that's just simple, like a simple shot with a nice shirt on, and pardon? A proper headshot would be nice, yeah, and it doesn't have to be, like, you don't have to invest a whole lot of money in it. We have the tools with our cell phones nowadays that we can take lovely shots of ourselves and things like that, but they should be polished and professional and approachable. They should be singular, like we shouldn't have other people sort of cropped out of the picture, ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends sort of cropped out of the picture, or ones that are old and outdated, so like nothing from the 60s or 70s, ideally something in the, 2000s would be nice, because it does make a big, huge difference in making that first impression. So this is sort of my plug and play headline formula, and so this is really, it's up to you as to whether you, yes?
I'm sorry, just to go back to the picture for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend, does it matter if you're facing the camera or you're looking off to the side? Does that have any trust issues associated with it?
I would presume so. I don't know the statistics on that. I would presume that having, like, instead of a glamour shot, remember those ones from the 80s? I think that having something face on is much more, I think it's the smile and it being approachable and all those things that we give off as nonverbal cues, face to face, would be the same things that I would sort of apply to the picture as well. Yeah. So your header, or by default, LinkedIn actually puts your headline as your current position. So oftentimes, whatever you've created, if you've already created your profile, your default, your header will be the default of your current position. But there's so much more opportunity that you have to make a really great first impression by actually simply changing your headline to be, let me just go ahead a little bit here. So I've captured Sue's. So basically you just come in, you go into profile, then edit profile, and within this area, in the edit profile area, you can change this. It's about 120 characters that you have to really clearly outline who you are, the audience that you help, and how you help them. Because a CEO or editor, that doesn't really explain to a lot of people as to what you do, and making that change, as Suze is freelancer writer at Get It Right. I help corporate communicators who need writing that has warmth and personality, is very clear. It's very clear as to who she is and how she helps her connections. Mine, and it's always a work in progress for me. I'm always changing mine. But I wanted to make sure that the LinkedIn is clear. Even though I do all sorts of social media, I wanted to make sure that that was the first impression that I was giving off to people, that if anybody's sort of researching who I am and how like a LinkedIn specialist or a LinkedIn trainer, that would come up first. And so those oftentimes it's sort of almost, the snapshot is just even as far as my name. So I wanted to make sure that was the first impression, yes, in my headline, yes.
Do you prefer questions as you go through? Or?
Yes, that's perfect, yes. That gets me to slow down and breathe.
If you're just starting out and you don't have a specialization yet, and one of the things you're doing is exploring how to figure out where you want to specialize, how would you approach going about it?
Yes, a lot of my students, I have to explain the same sort of thing. So if they're looking for opportunities, if you haven't really decided on the niche that you want to do yet, you could be as broad as you'd like to be. It's ideal when you can sort of get as narrow as possible, because not that will eliminate people from connecting with you, but yeah, I mean there's no harm in having sort of a generic title and saying that you're looking for opportunities as well. That's fine as well, because I've actually, with my students, I'll say to them that they're to put in that they're either in this particular field for school. So if the media, art, and design students that I'm working with, if they want to get into advertising, they'll say like current student at school, certain Durham College or UIT, looking for an opportunity in the advertising industry. And so it can be as broad as that, or if they're looking for something really, really specific in what specific niche they are, then I say put that in there whenever possible.
So what you do and also what you're looking for.
Yes, as long as you can contain it within 120 characters, which is almost impossible for a chatty girl like me. It's really, really hard for me Twitter's really hard for me because of the short. So it's, and sometimes I've even seen people just have categories of what they do as opposed to sort of creating it as a simple sentence. They'll delineate it by having it into almost blocks of trainer, speaker, all those types of things as well. So it really is whatever works for you. This isn't the Bible. This is just sort of a guideline of this, hopefully making it a little easier for you to work with. Yes?
And it's okay to put in the phrase of looking for work. That's really okay to be as clear as that.
I think so. I certainly think if you want to use that area to basically say, yes, I'm looking for opportunities, then absolutely, yeah. Yeah. So as I mentioned, that's exactly how you go into it. So you click on profile, then edit profile, and then this little pencil right here it'll be a little field that will come up where you can actually type that in there. And one of the interesting things, so one of my great friends and mentors who's been hired by LinkedIn, she suggested that since the CBC was tooting my horn as a social media, they called me a social media guru when I was on speaking on their show Here and Now once, so I was like, well, I can't call myself an expert, and I never would, because I feel like I'm always learning. But since the CBC called me an expert, she said, just throw that in there, because it looks like really good social proof. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I feel a little weird about it, but I'm going to go with it, because if the CBC says I'm okay, then maybe I am. So, okay. So your summary is your elevator pitch. So you have 2,000 characters to really flesh out your story. So you can, I write mine in first person because it certainly is far more approachable to write in the, hi, I'm Leslie, not even hi, but I say like, I am Leslie Hughes, and this is who I work with, this is what I'm passionate about, and these are the clients that I've worked with, and all those sorts of things, because again, I want it to be more approachable where people feel that they can connect with me and they want to reach out and actually develop a conversation with me. Within that, I can also include, or you can also include, because I've already got mine, accomplishments. So any things that you're specifically proud of. You can include any keywords. That's ideal if you think about it from the perspective of somebody who's actively searching for somebody with your qualifications. You kind of want to pepper that in a little bit as well, whether that's usually in the headline, in your summary, and also in your current position. If you can put those in there, that's great as well. But ideally, you want to make sure that you, again, are using up those. I've maxed mine out to 2,000 characters. Not everybody needs to max theirs out to 2,000 characters, but I'm going to stuff as much stuff in there as I possibly can to really help to tell my story. And I've got a few calls to action. So one of the presentations that I did, and then I've also made sure that at the end I have a call to action of please contact me with my email address and my phone number, because I don't want to just presume that people are going to know how to get in touch with me. I want to make sure that I have that clearly outlined, because I'm trying to build business at the end of the day. Okay, everybody good with that? So those are the 3 key areas. If there's nothing else that you change on LinkedIn, hopefully you will do a little bit over time, but is the picture and the headline and the summary. And if that's all you get out of today, then you're sailing, because frankly, 90% of the people out there that I have seen their LinkedIn profiles haven't even done their due diligence to optimize that. And yes, so please make sure that you do that. I actually have a bit of a workbook that I am now selling that actually has a bit of a plug and play sort of spreadsheet in there as well of sort of helping someone develop that. But that's what you do, so I'm sure you probably won't need it. So just kind of doing a little bit of a deeper dive. Ideally, you want to get to as close to 100% completion of your LinkedIn profile as possible. Those 3 key areas are certainly a beginning. It's a really good solid foundation. But to get to 100% completion, this was sort of the old algorithm, was to get to 100% completion, and these were the areas where your picture, the industry and location, which you probably had developed when you set up your account, your current position and description, 2 past positions, your education, 3 skills, and 50 or more connections. Because ideally, the more complete your LinkedIn profile, the more opportunities you're going to get. And LinkedIn actually said users with complete profiles are 40 times more likely to receive opportunities as a result. Yes?
Sorry, we're just having trouble seeing.
Again? Okay. Yes, just get out of the way. Get out of the way. So, yes?
By opportunities, do you mean those jobs that they send you?
It could just, I'm not sure exactly what that means. It's probably that the more information that you have, the more trust you're building, or the more connections people are going to understand who you are and how you help them more with having a more complete profile. And also helps with the ranking, because LinkedIn has its own search algorithm within there. And so if someone is looking specifically for someone with your qualifications, the more you have in there, the more likely you're going to be ranked higher in that. Yes?
So why would I get opportunities in sales when I have nothing in my profile that indicates I've done anything in sales since I worked at Eaton's in 1970? I mean, it's a very strange algorithm must be to offer me these jobs. So this morning I got a bunch of sales jobs, and then down at the bottom there was one editorial job. The rest of them were all sales. It's like, and for the strangest companies that have nothing to do with editing or publishing or anything like that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. So you're doing an active search, or they're coming, how are they coming to you?
This morning it said,
I'll have to take a look
your
at that.
LinkedIn opportunities for today or something like
Oh,
that.
I haven't seen that. Okay.
Well, LinkedIn seems to do that quite regularly, because I get a lot of those kinds of emails too. I think on a weekly basis I get, LinkedIn has found these opportunities for you.
Yes.
Send me a list of jobs, and most of them have absolutely nothing to do with what I do.
I might have unsubscribed to that, because I don't get those emails.
You don't subscribe to it, they just come.
I've never received them.
You unsubscribe, because I recently unsubscribed.
Okay, because I don't recall.
Check it out, different mailing lists, so you have to unsubscribe from each of them separately.
Yeah.
Unsubscribed from,
Okay, so all of those different types of emails are qualified as a different, they're a different type of email. So each type of email is a different mailing list. So you have to unsubscribe to each of them separately. It's really frustrating, but that's the way to do it.
but one of them actually was a really good editorial position that were I looking for full-time in-house work, I would definitely have gone for it. So if I unsubscribe to that email, where does that leave me?
Well, I imagine that content is already being populated to your normal page, so you just visit the page actively rather than waiting for it passively to arrive in your inbox. So it'd just be a matter of when you are actually looking for that information, going to the website. Sorry, I'm not...
No, that's great. Yeah, no, I'm happy. Thank you, because that makes a lot of sense. I think I answer because I receive about 100 emails on any given day because I'm constantly reading about best practices. So I think I have unsubscribed to those emails a long time ago because I wasn't actively looking. So I'm afraid I don't have the answer for you. I think that's the best answer. And so LinkedIn, instead of having this 100% completion, there's now almost a thermometer. And the ideal is to get as close to completion as possible. So now the thermometer, the profile strength is all-star. And so simply, you can go through the wizard when you go through that complete profile, which still pops up for me, even though I've populated with as much content as I possibly can in there. It still happens to pop up for me as well. So now I just ignore. Now, you can, by default, LinkedIn actually provides you with a URL or a website address down in this area that kind of looks like your first name, last name, and a whole bunch of numbers and so forth. But you can actually customize it to create your own personalized, what they call a vanity URL, which is you can have with your first and last name. And unfortunately, as I have a very common name, I had to throw my middle initial in there, or sometimes people put their last name first, first name last. Ideally, you don't want to have any numbers or anything like that, but you do want to have ideally your first and last name because that's what people are searching for you. So then you can put that on your, if you are looking for more opportunities, if you are looking to extend your network, you can put that on your business card or on your email signature as well, as opposed to the long, ugly one with a whole bunch of letters and numbers and so forth. So then it just sort of is, then it's up to you to sort of build it out further, as I said, staying focused on those 3 areas, and then just taking a little time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes here or there to sort of add a few little things. You can certainly showcase why people should connect, not just connect with you, but provide opportunities for you. So some of the articles that you've written, I've included, I'm not a professional writer, but I have included blog posts that I have that have been picked up by different it's not blogging. I blog, but the actual company that disseminated it were. I've just included blog posts. I can't really find the right words to sort of express myself. Any of the speaking engagement? Yes, ma'am.
Would you want it to be a link, or could it actually be like a PDF or something? Or
There's both actually. So if you really want to actually,
what would be most,
I would do both. Yes, I would be sassy enough to throw both of those in there. Because there's an opportunity, I'm going to show you this step, there's actually an opportunity for you to include multimedia. And so if it's something you're particularly proud of, you can actually include that as a multimedia piece within your summary or the specific position that you were working at. And then you, in the area that are the projects or the published work, you can put the title in there and then a hot link to the actual live article as well. So, yeah. So any speaking engagements, I do my best to populate that anytime I have a speaking engagement, I put that in there. Any of the published work. And if you don't actually have a lot of business experience, for my students, I encourage them to put in any sort of volunteer experience as well, because all of those really come into play when someone is looking for, when someone's looking to hire someone. Volunteer experience is often just as important as any sort of paid experience as well. Yes?
How much do you tailor it? So I'm looking for editing positions right now, and I've previously done communications, so I have a pretty varied experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some people that I know that tailor their LinkedIn accounts based on what jobs they're applying for, and then some people just put up a huge smorgasbord of everything that they've done.
Right.
So which way is most beneficial to go?
It really depends on your objective. So it is a strategy, and thinking about the end game of what you want to get out of it, it certainly should be tailored accordingly. And so, yeah, so my summary is really tailored to the current position that I have and what I want to do and who I want to work with, as opposed to the laundry list of some of the stuff I've done in the past is they're listed in my past positions, and I can flesh that out if I really want to, but putting that I was a receptionist for a few years doesn't really help me in my current position or moving forward. So those kinds of things. Does that help a little bit, or? Okay. Yeah, because I do get that question a lot of, my career trajectory didn't sort of take a straight line. It's sort of been all over the place, and I used to be an accountant, and now I'm a photographer, and so how do I meld those two lives together, and should I have separate accounts based on those types of things? And for me, it's everything that you are, regardless of the photographer and the accountant, they all make up who that person is, and so it all helps to tell that particular story, and in fact, it may create a discussion point. I think what's interesting about LinkedIn and sort of social selling is sort of the new buzzword term, is that we can glean a lot of information from someone's profile based on the information that they put there, and it can just open up a lot of doors, because just like the one I was connecting with today, actually while I was sitting here, was I was looking through someone's LinkedIn profile and noticed that she and I went to the same university, not at the same time, but it was, oh wow, that's really interesting, you and I both went to the same university together, I lived in Ottawa, and so we had this conversation that it just didn't seem so intimidating to sort of walk up to someone, as we sometimes will do in networking events, and go, oh, I hate going to those networking events because then I got to introduce myself to someone. But when we can use social media in order to sort of create the relationships almost in advance, it's a lot better. That's why I love Twitter, and that's another story. But when I walk into a room of a bunch of bloggers and we're all on Twitter together, it's like, oh my gosh, we're best friends before we even walk into the room together. And that's why these channels are really exciting for those of us who are trying to build new relationships. So social proof is another buzzword term. Basically, I've showed you a little bit of my social proof, which is the CBC called me a social media guru. And so anytime that you can toot your own horn or provide social proof is certainly very, very helpful, because you want to gain more opportunities. And so other people telling you saying how amazing you are is terrific. And there's a terrific book that I've seen Dr. Robert Cialdini speak, and he's got some really, really interesting social psychology about, and one of them is reciprocity. And so in the book, his example was back in the 70s, the Hare Krishnas that would be at the airport would say, I'd love to give you a gift. And you'd say, oh, no, thank you, no, thank you. Oh, no, it's a lovely gift that I'd like to give you. And then the people would accept the gift, and then they'd say, well, would you like to donate to our charity? And they go, oh, yeah, okay, fine, I'll donate. And so we do that because of the reciprocity. We feel that when someone does something nice for us, we should do something nice back for them. So this is my little secret ninja trick, is that to get a recommendation on LinkedIn, oftentimes I will give one to get one. So if it's somebody that I will stake my professional reputation on, oftentimes that person and I, we have usually a pretty good rapport, and so I will write a lovely testimonial to say how terrific they are, and then LinkedIn will say, Leslie's just written you this wonderful testimonial, would you care to write one back? And this is a really great way to sort of build up. If you're bashful and you don't want to simply ask someone for a recommendation, but this helps to build social proof. There's a question back there.
Well, I just, there seems to be a period when everybody's dog is recommended for things. I may have been recommended for things I didn't need. So,
Yes.
I
Those are the endorsements,
go with
right?
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that was a little annoying, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in terms of the recommendation, I have a client who and that means more to me, and it's more valid than me going and begging for them. I don't get it to do that.
Yes, well, some people don't have the opportunity. So recently, one of the clients that I worked with, I can't really write one for him because I've done the work for him. So I can't really write him a recommendation because I haven't. Anyway, I'm babbling. So basically, he wrote me a lovely one in text, and I sent it back to him via LinkedIn, and I said, would you mind actually just including this in the LinkedIn infrastructure, because then it has to actually come from him, and he'd already written it in an email form, and he'd actually voluntarily had done that. I didn't have to ask him for it, but I could, if I really felt bold and bold, to go in there and to look at someone's profile and basically ask to be recommended. And sometimes that's not going to be a terrible thing, especially if you have delivered. Some of us are a little bit more bold than others to say, hey, can you recommend me? And I've received those requests for recommendations from people that haven't deserved them, and I just ignore them, because actually LinkedIn someone can send up to, I think it's 50, it could be 200, up to 50 connections at the very minimum. Someone can blast it out to their network, and you'll get one of those standardized, can you recommend me? You've probably seen those ones. Can you recommend me for the job? And it's not tailored, it's not customized, it's not personalized. And so I'll ignore those because someone has just mass blasted it out there. But if somebody specifically said, had messaged me and said, listen, Leslie, we worked together on this project. Could you please write and put these testimonials, could you write a recommendation for me in highlighting these particular qualifications? And I would be more than happy to, as long as I would stake my professional career on them. I'd be more than happy to. So that's what I ask my students to do, is to say, if you're going to boldly ask for a recommendation, give them as much information, actually write it for them, because most times people this takes a lot of time to sit down and write a recommendation for someone.
That just, to me, it just means the whole thing. I mean, I don't take them seriously. I don't take them seriously. I think it's just more honest.
It certainly is. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of us are looking for ways to showcase ourselves professionally, and as long as they're on there, then and someone who is very, for me, let's just say I really want to work in an insurance industry, and because I've been working with Guardian Life, someone who's like the person who's given me the recommendation may say, okay, well, if this person from Guardian Life says that Leslie's great, then our insurance industry is going to, our insurance company is going to think Leslie's great as well. So there's all these we have to sort of play, as in sales, you kind of have to be a little, this is what the whole social psychology is all about with Dr. Robert Cialdini's stuff. It's an interesting book. It's really interesting, but it's how to get people you're manipulating people to get them to what you want to do, right? That's what marketing's all about. So we are marketing ourselves, and frankly, the one thing about LinkedIn that I kind of like is most of us are too bashful to toot our own horn. We don't want to walk up and say, oh, I'm so great and I'm so terrific. But LinkedIn is the channel we're expected to showcase these accomplishments. So as I said, there's a whole deeper dive into the area of LinkedIn, where you can include, if you speak different languages, you can actually highlight that. You can actually translate your LinkedIn profile into another language, any honors, awards, test scores, certifications, volunteer experience, and so forth. And again, it just take a little bit of time. Don't expect to do, Rome wasn't built in a day, so don't expect that it's going to be done, it's not going to be done right away. The areas that I suggest you don't publish, one is your year of birth, and that's not for vanity purposes. That really is because you don't want to have too much identifiable pieces of information about yourself out there for fraudulent purposes. Your marital status has really very little bearing on your career and your professional presence, so it really shouldn't really matter about your marital status. And of course, not publishing your home address or announce when you're away on vacation, which seems pretty common sense to at least the LinkedIn infrastructure. I see this happen all the time on other social channels, and I've had my own identity stolen, so I'm very, very mindful of I'll just tell you my little backstory, which has nothing to do really with LinkedIn, but it scared the crap out of me, so I have to share it with all of you, so that maybe you'll bestow it upon any of the young people that you know as well, because I find the younger demographic are far more expressive and share a lot of information of where they're going and who they're with. So a little bit of a backstory was in 2010, somebody went on to a competitor's, and I use the air quote because I really don't believe in competitors. I work in a collaborative environment, but a competitor's website or their blog, and wrote, and I'm just going to paraphrase, "Dear Anne, you're nothing but a hack and a money-grubbing pig, signed Leslie Hughes." And my picture came up, and within 8 hours, 40 people had responded to say, what kind of a business person are you, Leslie Hughes? You're a horrible human being. And from a professional standpoint, not only was it a kick in the gut to have that happen, but from a personal standpoint, I thought, if this person is malicious enough to go on to to do this to my personal identity, is this person going to show up at my house? And my son was only about 3 at the time, and I thought, is this person going to show up at my house or at my son's school and say, I know your dog's name, and I know where your mom, and I know your mommy, and all sorts of things that just made me very, very mindful of how much information I had been sharing about myself. And it made me very, very afraid. And thankfully, because I went to the police station with all the documentation of the IP address and all the documentation of the 40 people, and I said, and I have a friend who's in the police services who told me to go in with 403C of the criminal code, which is called personation with intent to do harm. And I went in with my 3-year-old in tow, and I was like, I'm scared for my safety. And within a month, they actually tracked this person down. He said he did it for fun. He really didn't have anything against me. He had something against the person whose blog post that it was written on. And so even though I love social media, I'm very, very mindful of the information that I share about myself. And thankfully, LinkedIn is the channel that we can share a certain amount of personal information, but we can also protect ourselves from disseminating too much information. So I tell that cautionary story story, and actually there's a really cool website called takethislollipop.com. So if you have anybody that's in their teens or 20s that put a lot of information out there, get them to put this app on their Facebook. It pulls out all of their images, and there's like a creepy guy behind the camera that's like looking at the pictures, and I show this to my students and they're always like, oh my gosh. They freak out because it's so scary. I watch it every time. My heart's like, this makes me so scared.
How do you feel about the phone?
I have my cell phone number on there. So that's I have my cell phone number. Yes. So I don't publish my home information specifically because of that, and I have in the past. I mean, it's easy to find if someone really wanted to find it, but I am sort of mindful of it now that I'm just what.
A lot of people, like, they'll put their LinkedIn stuff everywhere, and I thought, I want to control who goes and sees what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And where, because it goes back to, you know, your information trail. It's like, you know where I've gone to school, when I went to school, who I've worked for, all this stuff. Not that that has to do with password thing, but it's information about me that can come back to me. I want to control who sees.
Right. You can set those settings. You can set those privacy settings down. Mine is open. Yeah, so I keep mine open because I'm hoping for opportunities, because I am self-employed, so I am looking for opportunities. So I do keep it as open as possible, and I've blocked that person who did steal my identity. Like I block him, and I have to remember though, he can find me. He can still find me, and he has. I've found him following me on other channels and things like that. So it's a little creepy, and the police officer told me that he's not a serial offender, and this was his first time, and all those other kind of stuff. Still doesn't make me feel any better. But I've scared my 8-year-old son. This is again an aside, and I know we have to continue on. But my 8-year-old son has a YouTube account, which I think is hilarious, because as a social media strategist, I said to him, okay, we're going to talk about a content calendar, and we're going to sit down and talk about objectives. And he was like, Mom, I just want to film my playing Minecraft on. That's all he wants to do is videotape himself playing Minecraft. But I've created an avatar for him. He doesn't use his real name, so I've scared the crap out of him for using all of his own personal information. But I'm also like, trust your gut. I tell my son, like, you have to really trust who you're connecting with on these different channels and things like that. So I watch over him like a hawk. But it's just kind of funny that an 8-year-old is already setting up, But that's my crazy like social media, like, content calendar is so important. You have no idea. He's like, I'm 8, Mom. Content calendar, so it's developing the content ahead of time, so that when it's ready, when you're ready to publish it, it's already ready in the queue to go. So in the magazine industry or the print industry, oftentimes those the content is developed ahead of time, or at least the themes are developed ahead of time. So it's an organization just to make sure that you're meeting your objectives and things like that. So yeah. No, he's like, Mom, and I was like, okay, we're gonna teach grown-ups how to play Minecraft, and he was like, no, Mom, like there's no way he's gonna be on board with that. So at 8 years old, I'm getting the palm already, which is scary. So as I mentioned, we don't connect with people without a conversation. And so ideally, hopefully we'll all connect. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn, so please do after this. But I always vet all the connections. I think I have up to about 1,800 connections. So I do public speaking, and I don't necessarily always get to know face-to-face people, and maybe we won't have a conversation today. But if we do get connected on LinkedIn, and ideally we will, I always personalize an introduction request. This is how we met, or if I haven't met someone, can you just refresh my memory as to how we know each other? Or you want to connect with me, let me know a little bit about your business, because it's really not just amassing business cards. We've had those business cards in chunks that just sit in our desk and we never do anything with it, but we remember those that have made an impression on us. So I think it's really important that we just kind of take the social that happens online into sort of a relationship building forum as well. And so, as I mentioned, for me, I will sometimes, so one person was a very well-known a female entrepreneur here in Toronto, and she just simply clicked on the I'd like to connect with you, and I got the standardized message of, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. And I responded to her, I said, well, I don't know you, but I'd love to go for a cup of coffee with you. I thought I was going to get 5 minutes of this woman's time, and she ended up sitting down with me for like an hour and a half, gave me all sorts of advice. You know, she said, oh, I'd love to mentor you. Like, she was just so wonderful. And I thought, this is an amazing opportunity for me that I never would have had I not responded to her and said, I don't know you, but I'd like to get to know you. And I don't do that with all of my connections, because frankly, some of them aren't really strategic. Somebody that lives in another country is not necessarily going to be my ideal client, but I do sort of look at those people that are connecting with me and see if there's a way that I can actually have a conversation with them. So I always personalize that. This is a really, really important one. And so my frustration is that the only time that you can send a personalized introduction or personalized connection request is if you go onto your desktop or your laptop and you click the connection request from there. The iPad, those apps, you actually have to go to their profile and then click on the connect button in order to actually create these fields, which is really, really frustrating, because I like to send those personalized notes because, again, it's all about the conversation and it's not just simply like circulating business cards. So ideally, again, remind someone, even if it's somebody that you haven't seen in 20 years, hey, we went to school together, we worked together, and that sort of thing, just to refresh their memory, because maybe they haven't remembered how you connected. Yes?
What's the best way to connect with people that you don't know? Because I know...
Yes. So that's one of them. So one of the things was, if I don't know them, I'll say, hey, what I'll usually do is try to pre-qualify why I want to get to know them. So I'll explain to them, I read your recent post, or I was at a recent conference and I saw you speak, or any sort of information. I really enjoy listening to you, reading your blog post about this, or your article about this, or something that makes it really personable, or is it personable or personal? Personal. See, your editor's like. And so just glean as much information as you can about them, and sort of try to turn that cold call into a warm introduction. And that actually kind of segues quite nicely into, let's just say I don't know Jennifer Rooney. So this is where the social selling part comes into it. So I don't know Jennifer Rooney, but she's the editor of the CMO network at Forbes. But I see that Julie Catino knows her. And Julie Catino she's the former brand manager at Virgin, and I've taken one of Julie's online courses. And so when Julie came to Toronto, of course I wanted to meet with her in person because she's well connected and she used to work with Richard Branson, of course, so I wanted to get to know her. But basically, if I wanted to get in touch with Jennifer, who's my second degree connection, I would simply ask Julie for an introduction. And that's the way you turn a cold call into a warm introduction, and that makes it a lot easier to or I could simply go to Jennifer and say, hey, we know Julie in common. I'd really like to talk to you about whatever the objective is that I want to talk to her about. But not everybody subscribes to the same principle of connect with quality people, so I want to make sure that I would reach out to Julie. If I'm going to throw Julie's name in there, I want to make sure that's okay with Julie first. Sometimes people are like, I don't know who she is, I just connected with her on LinkedIn. So that sort of, does that help a little bit with how to turn that cold call into a warm introduction?
And actually, LinkedIn discourages you from connecting with people you know about.
It's true, and yet so many people out there.
Just ignore it. Just ignore that.
Oh, yeah, but they do,
Most people actually do ignore that, and a lot of people think that they look influential if they have a lot of connections too. So you'll even see sometimes people put that in their head, that they've got a Lion, which is a LinkedIn open networker, and that they've got like 5,000 connections. But to me, that's just counterintuitive to me. I don't think that having a Rolodex of business cards turns any business for me. It doesn't make to me it doesn't make them look any like savvier. Unless they know each and every one of those 5,000 people, then who cares, right? That's just my opinion. So this is another little nugget. So you get these requests, since you're a person I trust, or since you're, I want to connect with you on LinkedIn, my response to them usually, and the easiest way to do this is just you'll almost always get an email from LinkedIn. So I click the reply button on your email, or on your iPad or iPhone, this little button down here, you can reply without accepting them. And then I say to them, thank you for the invitation to connect. Can you refresh my memory as to how we know each other? And I've received everything from, I didn't have my glasses on and I clicked the button, or like it's I don't know you, but I really want, like, and so some of them I'm sort of like in between with some of the ones that have sent me invitations that are just like, I really want to follow all your posts, and I'm like, well, why don't just follow me instead of, anyway, so so this is just a great way for to sort of facilitate a discussion, and then sometimes I'll go back and say, if they say, well, I don't know you, but I really want to connect with you, and I'll say, well, tell me a little bit about your business, and then that's like a little bit of a back and forth before I sort of accept them into my world.
The email that I usually get, just going back to that.
Yes.
Does it show those different choices?
Yes, usually they don't. So you can just hit the reply button on your email, and it'll still do the same thing. You can still actually just send them a reply, but it'll come from your email as opposed to within the LinkedIn sort of infrastructure. But this is another way of doing it. There's just so many steps. I think I have a video on my blog about how to go through the 10 million steps on your desktop on how to do it. It's unfortunate because this is such an important piece. This is a really, really important piece that they don't make it as intuitively easy to reply without actually making that connection, because for that exact reason they say it's important for you to connect with only people that you know, but then they don't give you the opportunity to sort of vet those people. So
where you get email to your email that really, when you looked at it, had nothing to do with LinkedIn. But it said it was LinkedIn, so it was it's getting confusing.
Yeah. Some other area to sort of connect with people are the groups as well. So sometimes your groups will especially within a target audience, if you are working with a specific niche that, so the editors, do you have a LinkedIn group for your associate? So of course you have to join this one. And then if you're in a specific niche, if you're a writer for a specific niche, then of course you want to join that group as well. Because again, anytime you can go in and answer questions for your target audience, the more you're going to look like an expert as well. So you can go in and join groups, but as we know, we get inundated with those emails, right? So you go into, this is the privacy and settings area. So this is the exact same area when I had mentioned to you to turn off the notifications. You go into the privacy and settings, and then you can set the frequency of your group digest emails to none if you want to get none, or you can have them as a daily digest, because some of the groups are really spammy, some of them have a lot of content in them. Then you can go to them as opposed to getting the emails, or if you like getting the emails, then you can subscribe to how many emails you want to get, because I know sometimes we're inundated with way too many emails in a day, and so I like to keep things as simple as possible. Something else that's kind of interesting is that LinkedIn actually has within their infrastructure its own customer relationship sort of database in there, so you can actually keep notes to yourself or reminders, or if you're really organized, then you can tag people by categories, and this is information's only visible to you, so you can actually set reminders as to when, if you want to follow up with someone, or their dog's name is Harley, or their, all those kinds of things, and so this information sort of you can collect about them and having a conversation, and then you can keep that within sort of LinkedIn as well. It's just a little bit of a helpful tip. So I know I don't have much time left because we're running out of time, but the important part, this is where you guys shine, right? As writers, you can actually stay top of mind and stay in touch with people by writing status updates. So every time you write a status update, people are reminded of who you are, how you help them, all those kinds of things. And there's a book by Jonah Berger, which as a social media marketing person I absolutely love, is called Contagious. I love this book because top of mind is tip of tongue. And so when we share information out there, then we're more likely to receive opportunities. So as I'm going to kind of go even faster. Yes. It's called Contagious. The book is called Contagious. He has a great TED Talk too. He's a really good speaker. Jonah Berger. He's a professor at the Wharton School of Business. He's terrific. It's a really, really great book because it's all about viral marketing. I love it. It's really cool. So different status updates could be, if you're speaking at a certain conference or you're attending a certain conference, there's an article that you've read or that you've written that you want to share with other people. These are just little examples of status updates. Now, recently, so back to the status update part, you can actually write blogs right within LinkedIn. And as writers, this is where you're going to shine, right? So right here where there's a pencil right within the status update, I'm so excited about this, is I actually wrote one a couple weeks ago, and I wrote what must change for social media marketing for 2015. It's my 2 cents or whatever it's worth. And it got picked up by the LinkedIn Pulse, and it was over 12,000 people actually saw my post. Yay me! So I was really excited that this happened. Who knows? I have no idea what the sweet spot was, why it got picked up, but it certainly got disseminated, and I was like, yay! So basically, as writers, you can actually showcase your work right within LinkedIn, and people will get those notifications right up in the top right-hand side. They'll say, yes, the notifications.
But if you put LinkedIn Pulse on Twitter, you get more posts.
Yes, of course. And I was like, because it's all about marketing at the end of the day. I had to say, wow, 12,000 people saw my post. I must have triggered something. So it's kind of getting people back to, to this, to see it again, and just remind them that it's out there and so forth. So I'm pretty excited about it. And you'll see I have 103 people, 560 people liked the page, and then 103 people actually commented on it. And I went and responded to each and every one of those comments because I really think it's important, again, to facilitate that dialogue. So yeah, so those are called the influencer posts, and most of us, if not all of us, actually have the opportunity to write those posts within there as well. So again, you want to showcase your work, and it ends up, as a part of your, kind of like your Rolodex on there too, right, or your resume.
Time to do any work?
Pardon me?
Do you have time to do any
This is what I do all day, every day. So this is my work.
But it's not what we do all day.
There's some people if you can find your posts and then write them.
Seth Godin.
Yeah, because that happened to me about 2 months ago. I wrote something on mentoring, being mentored, but nothing of it. I got 3,000, my biggest.
Awesome.
When I worked and therefore I went to Pulse, and then went on Twitter, it grew more. And also, for more tips like this, join LinkedIn chat on Twitter. So it's an hour a week, basically, for all this stuff. I'm being honest here. I lecture, and I coach, and I edit. So my only beef with LinkedIn is that there's no category. But other than that, you can really do all this. And okay, I don't have a kid, maybe it's easier, but you can do it.
But depending on your strategy, and this is a whole other aside, though, is really the best. Social media it is time consuming. I'm not gonna argue with that because I know it's really frustrating, but staying really focused on your objectives and your strategy will really help save time, and that's why the content calendar is important because, and I don't want to get into that too much, but developing what you're going to say, when you're going to say it, really helps to get focused, and the more you know your goals, the more you can sort of take, and then you're not just sort of throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that it's going to stick. So that's sort of an aside. We can talk about that later. Anybody wants to stick around. So the best time to actually update your status is when people are at their desks. So between 7 and 9 in the morning is ideally the best times, at least the statistics are saying, that this is when people are either on the train or sitting at their desk getting ready for their day. So 7 to 9 in the morning. They say Tuesday to Thursday. But basically updating your status update just a couple times a week. As I said, it can be a great article that you've read. It doesn't even have to be the one that you've written. But you want to stay top of mind with people because you want to receive those opportunities. So just building those relationships, clicking like, congratulating people, joining conversation in groups. Again, it's all about social media at the end of the day. So as I said, sort of going back to that, and I'm just wrapping up, so this is great. This is the cold call into warm introduction. I've already walked you through this, but I'm just going to walk you through it again because that's what they tell me as a teacher. I'm supposed to say it. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say, and then I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to tell you, and tell you. Is the 3-step is like search for that dream connection. So anybody in the world that you want to work with, if you have a dream connection or a dream person, or you want to work with Deepak Chopra or Oprah. Oprah's not on there. I looked for her, and so you look for that dream connection. You see who connects you, and then you can ask for an introduction as well. So as I sort of said, as a wrapping it up, so it's that 3 area, the headline, image, summary. When you can, get to 100% completion. Connect with those quality people, build those relationships. You don't have to connect with everyone. That's sort of the caveat that I want to sort of say as well. You don't have to accept everybody in, and then you want to stay top of mind and stay in touch. So I have a bit of a cheat sheet that I can email you if you give me your credit card. If you give me your wow, that was a great Freudian slip. Because I really don't promote myself enough. So I have a cheat sheet. If you want to give me your business card, you can either tell me if you want the cheat sheet, you can put A on it. If you want to put B on it, if there's a specific challenge that you're having with LinkedIn or social media or anything like that, just you can either write the challenge or just put B, and I'll get in touch with you. And then if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, which is right now, I have to bashfully admit, I tell other people all the time, you have to be consistent. It's really important. And then I'm like every other week back to my emails and so forth. So, but if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, I'm happy to to subscribe you there as well. And so again, we've kind of gone through a lot of the questions and so forth. So if there's anything else I can help you with, I am certainly here to help. Don't be bashful, because we're all learning together, and that's why I'm so glad that you participated in the conversation as well with your experience, because we're all learning this, and everybody's going to have their own different opinion. I've been in a debate with someone who accepts everyone into his Rolodex, because it seemed like that other person who has like the 5,000 connections, he just says, well, I don't know who's going to open up a door for me, so I'm going to accept everyone. And I respect him for his opinion. That's not my opinion. And that's okay. That's okay. We all have our own opinions. So is there any other questions that anybody else has about LinkedIn? Yes.
So what do you do when I've tried 4 or 5 categories, and I truly write and edit part-time, I lecture, and I also do a coach as well.
Yes.
So, and I can't find a category on LinkedIn.
Well, I don't even think they have a social media category, so I have to sort of either go public relations or marketing, which is ironic, right, for the fact that it's a social media channel,
The
right?
categories are very strange, but limiting, but also strange. Why is that? What do you think?
I'm not sure. It has. I think part of it has to do with the incoming information. Like, so they try to do a broad category, because that way they can sort of that helps sort of bring in the inbound information of which pulse articles you're going to see. But yeah, I don't have any rhyme or reason to that. I don't have. There's some of the things that, like, I shake my head with LinkedIn, because I'm like, why are they doing that? Why is that not easier? It should be easier. But it is the easiest for those of you who aren't on social media. It certainly is the easiest out of all the channels, because it doesn't change as often as the other ones. It's not Facebook that's constantly doing this bait and switch sort of thing, but and it's where the professional presence is. So it's not it's not as intimidating as the other channels. So yeah. Anything else? Anyone else? Yes, Sam.
I heard you on CBC.
You did?
Yes. It was so interesting. I was when I was working in the kitchen, I had to write down my name.
Oh, yay me!
So we're talking about LinkedIn. It ended up in the first with us, and I said, why don't I do this no?
I love it! I love it! Oh my gosh!
So I'm glad you're claiming the CBC.
Oh.
Now, I had a question. I was trying to list my little company, 1.5 employees, and...
That's 5 point more than me.
Okay, it's a very iffy. And, it just seems so paltry, LinkedIn, when I've been working at organizations that have thousands of employees, and then, finally, by 2014.
In your company page specifically, is that the one?
Well, I haven't even made a company page.
I wouldn't bother.
Working, at my old company, according to LinkedIn, because it's so, because I just haven't, done that step. Do you have a cheat sheet for the company page? Or,
I have some advice for the company page. The company page, I sort of find I don't spend a lot of time in it because I am the solopreneur, that I don't spend a lot of time in there, because frankly I think I've got 15 followers in there, so I'm only going to dedicate the time and resources to where I'm going to get the biggest bang for my buck. And those 15 people that are following, like, if I miss them, oh, okay. But I think as I said, I think I have about 1,800 people that I'm connected with on LinkedIn. I'm more people are more likely to want to connect with me there as a person on LinkedIn as opposed to the company page. And there's just not a lot of meat to the company page. There used to be when there were the products and services, and now they have a showcase page. The bigger the organization, the more important it is, because it's sort of a hub. Let's say Disney would be a great example, because they have so many different sub-brands, and under the umbrella of Disney, it's good to have that company page. But I just think as the smaller the organization, the less need there is for an actually company page, and the only time you may need it is if you're going to be doing advertising. So I think that's the only time, if anybody else has any sort of feedback on the company page. But I certainly can help build that out for you.
I was thinking of just using the hub and spoke approach, where I would have, if that's the correct term for it, where I would put the URL to my website on it, and basically that was all.
Yes, you do have an opportunity to have a summary in there as well, and you can update it with the same status updates that you're doing on your personal page, you can do on your business page as well. Of course, they need to be relevant to the business, ideally. So you can sort of duplicate efforts there, but yeah. So it's really whether you want to sort of develop that for the additional exposure, But unfortunately, there used to be so much more to it. That you could put in videos and all sorts of other things, and then they changed that all up. So it's not as robust as it used to be. So that's the unfortunate part about it, because it was kind of nice to have, for a small business, to have this little company page sitting there. It's different than the Facebook company page. Yeah. Okay. Yes, but please let's connect.
You mentioned about being able to personalize your signature.
Yes.
And I just happened to glance at my LinkedIn signature. It's got my name, but
Yes.
it's also got that series of numbers.
Yes. So you will want to edit, and you'll just want to make sure that all those numbers have been taken off.
Okay, but it'll still get to me.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it's terrific. It'll go directly to you, and you won't have to worry about putting any of those numbers into your email signature or anything else. Yeah. Hi. That's a really good question. I've just, because of this whole big shebang or whatever the word is, I just made that word up, for the getting the exposure on Pulse. So I got the free month for the premium, and I really don't think it's going to be worth the return on investment, because unless I was actually doing overt sort of hustling, because the most important part of the premium account is the in-mails. So you get a certain amount of in-mails, which people love if they're using it for sales. But I don't think that I'm going to be able to get the return on the monthly invest, because it's quite expensive to invest in that. So if you're a job seeker, recruiter, or in sales, then those are the categories that the premium account is really designed for, because there's a lot more search functionality, and you can see a lot of who's looked at your profile and things like that. So it really does depend on how much return you're going to get on it. But frankly, for me, being self-employed, unless I was doing a whole lot of hustling, I'd probably say not really worth it. But I would try out the free month, right, to see if you like it. Yeah.
Yeah, but the premium one, you still don't get to see everyone who looks at your profile.
It's not everyone. Yeah, it's the people that have, because there are ways to creep other people's pages without them knowing about it. They can turn off to make it anonymous. So anybody who's turned off to make it anonymous, you can't see. So yeah, so I think that's the guy who was kind of creeping me. I think he turned it anonymous and he started following me, and then block. Now I can block him. So I'm sort of struggling with that as well, because sometimes people actually do take the time when I say, "Can you just refresh my memory as to how we know each other? I don't know you, but I really want to follow you." And I'm like, okay, that's really nice of you, but I don't know. And I don't want to be that person. It's just like, oh no, if you're not doing something for them, I'm going to connect with you. I don't want to be that person either, because I really don't believe in that.
No, but I mean, I will have connected, and
Yes.
then, but, I've got more than 500 connections, but I'm blocked except for the acquaintances we have in common.
Oh, okay.
That's weird.
So they probably set it up themselves to
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Some people are very nervous about that, because I mean that's the interesting part of social media, is that there is no control, right? And businesses want to control all of this stuff, and that's where for me is, and I'm now dovetailing away from your question into another answer, is why I believe that all businesses really should be investing in the LinkedIn presence of their employees, because companies are just so used to locking things down. We want to control the information, but it's really missing out an opportunity for the staff to be brand ambassadors, and for them to showcase that they're so excited about where they're working, and this is where they're working, and here are the wins about the company, and there's just so many opportunities. So I think a lot of people still are very, very nervous about locking down all of their personal information, which I understand, having, with my crazy story, but I also see that it can be used for so much good, and I think that I have to, I sort of temper the good with the bad, and mindful of not sharing too much information about myself, but sharing just enough that I can be transparent and authentic and all those kinds of things, because it's sort of like this balance in the world that we sort of have to live in now, because the information is out there. And even my cousins who, I have a cousin in the United States who doesn't believe in social media, he's not even on social media, and it was interesting because a few years ago I could pull up how much money he made, where he lives, what his wife does for a living, what his daughter's name is, what she does for a living. All this information's out there, and this is somebody that doesn't even believe in social media. So the information the digital breadcrumbs are out there, and we have to really understand sort of what's out there. There's a really interesting video called that now I'm going to scare. I've invited you all to my pool, and now I'm going to tell you a shark story. Is that there's the Google's terms and conditions may apply, which is a really interesting sort of documentary that was on, it's on Netflix, and sort of like how we just agreed to all the terms and conditions out there and things like that. So we're kind of in this no man's land of we're, giving a lot of information about people, opening up the kimono and letting people see all sorts of different things about ourselves, and yet at the same time, we can't get away from it because this is just the way everything's captured digitally nowadays. So it's finding that fine balance and being comfortable with it. I have no idea where things are going to go. It kind of scares me a little bit when I think of my son's age and how he's just going to be born in an era where everything is going to be out there. And so is it going to be where he's going to keep a lot of information to himself as much as he can? Is it going to be like a Russian state where he's, or like a socialized, it used to be Russian state, right, of the communism, and people were very, very, would keep a lot of information personal and wouldn't share that information. Is it going to be like that, or is it just going to be like, it's out there, who cares? So I see my college students are like that. They're like, it's out there, who cares? All those pictures of me getting drunk, whatever. But I always tell them the worst thing, it's statistically speaking, it's worse for them to spell beer wrong than it is for them to have a beer. That's true. So human resources will definitely frown upon spelling errors more than they will the occasional drink, having the beer. So, yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll connect. There's my LinkedIn, or email me, and ideally we can connect on LinkedIn. And if there's any other questions you have, I'm certainly happy to help and share and stuff. So thank you for having me today.